Dell3454, an original short story. Hodges Ballard was 8 years old when he walked into third grade on the first day of school. His family had just settled in this small New England town. His father was career Army, and so his family moved around a lot ever since he could remember. His dad was injured in an accident on duty and was forced to retire on a disability. Hodges was excited about the idea of living in one place for an extended period of time. Hodges was tall for his age and thin. He had poor eyesight and had to wear thick glasses in order to see anything. He had two older brothers, and so most of his clothing were handed down from them. Because he was taller than they were at his age, most of the pants were a little too short for Hodges. Hodges was tall and lanky and uncoordinated. He had bad eyesight and severe asthma, which made doing any physical activity very difficult. What Hodges lacked in physical acuity, he more than made up for with intellectual ability. He had an above-average IQ and scored off the charts in cognitive thinking and just about every other academic marker. Hodges had a broad vocabulary for an 8-year-old. He liked to read and was doing so on a 6th grade level already. Because of this, he often used words that his classmates did not understand. To top it all off, he was extremely socially awkward. Because of all these things, he got picked on by the other kids in his class. By the time he entered middle school, he was an introvert who kept to himself and did not have many friends. Middle school was an especially hard time for Hodges, or Hodgie, as the other kids started calling him. He loved science and excelled at it. Hodges was the textbook definition of a nerd and a geek. When he graduated high school, he received a full scholarship to the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, but refused to go. He thought of being in a large campus with so many other kids so overwhelming to him. His parents fought to get him to go, trying to make him understand what a wonderful opportunity it was. But in the end, he did not attend. Instead, he took online courses and received a bachelor degree in computer science in less than 3 years. He went on to get his master's shortly after. He landed a job in the IT department for a very large corporation. His main job duty was to administer to the maintenance and operation of a large mainframe server. He worked alone mostly in a temperature-controlled, windowless room where the server was located. He loved his job. He was very good at it. And due to the fact that it allowed him to spend most of his time alone, it suited him well. That was all about to change. After the retirement of the building maintenance supervisor, in order to save money, the company consolidated that job with the job Hodges was doing. Because the maintenance supervisor's job duties mainly consisted of operating and maintaining a complex computerized energy management system, Hodges was very well qualified to do it. In fact, when the company put the system online, the maintenance supervisor at the time struggled to learn and understand it. Hodges was called in many times to explain the complex system. He regularly assisted and supported the maintenance supervisor with the system. Consolidating the job with Hodges' job made complete sense to the company. In his new capacity with the company, Hodges was forced to divide his time between the server room and the maintenance office, a dimly lit, damp room in the basement level of the large building. He would spend the first hour of his day in the server room, running various test functions and tweaking the operational protocols as needed. He would also spend the last hour there as well. Other than going up there briefly as needed during the day, he spent the rest of his time in the maintenance department. There, he was responsible for overseeing the operation of the energy management system as well as the day-to-day plant maintenance tasks. This consisted mainly of generating and prioritizing work orders from email requests from staff and administrative employees. Dane Deletta was the director of physical plant operations and services. Hodges, in his new role with the company, now fell under Deleta's purview. Dane Deleta was a small man. He was small in physical stature and emotional and intellectual stature, and in just about every other way as well. He was also obnoxious and abrasive. Because of these things, he got beat up a lot as a child and a young man. So naturally, to extract his revenge on the normal-sized people of the world, he strove to have a career in law enforcement as a young man. He made several attempts to achieve this goal, but was rejected each time. The first 3 times, he was turned down because he did not meet the minimum height and weight requirements for the departments to which he applied. When he finally found a police department that did not have a strict policy on this, he was excited and applied immediately. In that application process, he could not pass the psychological exam and was turned down yet again. Dane Deleta had no people skills, and when he met Hodges for the first time, it did not go well. Hodges was introverted and did not possess good people skills either. With Dane, the other people that worked for him, they were only successful if they went out of their way to be disingenuously nice to him. In other words, they needed to kiss his butt in order for him to generally leave them alone. Dane was arrogant and had a habit of talking down to the people that worked for him. With his supervisors, however, he was the consummate charmer at all times. Hodges was smart and good at his job. He never felt it necessary to do anything to gain his employer's favor, except show up every day and perform his job duties to the best of his ability. So, of course, Dane Deleta and Hodges Ballard did not hit it off from the very first time they met. Hodges did not like his new job duties. He preferred to be alone in his server room, locked away from the outside world. The never-ending stream of petty complaints from staff about meaningless, non-existent problems became the bane of his existence. The secretary from the reception desk on the 5th floor emailed to say that the soda machine in the reception area was excessively loud when it cycled on. The accountant in cubicle 326 emailed every day to complain that her area was 5 degrees too cool. The accountant in cubicle 327 emailed every day to complain that her area was too warm. Both cubicles were controlled by the same ventilation unit and therefore had the same temperature control set point. One administrator complained every single day that there were not enough parking spots assigned her department and that she had to park further away than she liked. In reality, she was upset because another department administrator with less seniority with the company had a reserved spot in the lot assigned her department, but the first administrator did not and felt slighted. The list of complaints, many of which had no practical solution, droned on, seemingly endlessly. When Hodges came into his office in the morning, he would look over the list of email complaints. He then made the adjustments that he could to address as many of them as possible or prudent. One complaint that came in daily from a human resources compliance officer he systematically ignored. The heating and cooling system went into night setback mode at 6 p.m. and back out again at 6 a.m. When she reported to work early every day at 7 a.m., her office had not yet been heated up to the desired set point. She emailed Hodges promptly to complain at 7:15 every morning. He knew that by 8 a.m. the office would reach the desired temp, and so he just ignored her complaint. He started his day in the server room, and by the time he got to the maintenance office, the problem had resolved itself. Hodges designed and installed a software program that allowed him to interface with the energy management computer via voice commands. He could read an email and then simply talk to his computer. He would say things like, Dell, raise temp in cubicle 100 4 degrees, please. His computer, a Dell3454, would even reply, Yes, Mr. Ballard, I have raised the temperature in the cubicle 100 by 4 degrees. Hodges would smile. He found it odd when, one day, when he responded, Thank you, Dell, the computer answered him back, You're welcome, Mr. Ballard. Hodges started to notice similar incidences with various other functions of the computer. He didn't think much about it, at least on a conscious level. The computer was actually becoming familiar with Hodges and reacting to him. Hodges was easily frustrated with the company employees who he was now forced to interact with. When he read an email about some petty complaint, he would mumble to himself, almost non-audibly, Oxygen thieves. That was his way of labeling someone as useless. One day, while reading the morning email from the human resources officer, Hodges sighed. The computer spoke as it typed the words, Oxygen thief. Hodges, startled, looked up at the screen. He paused for a moment and then asked, Dell, do you hear me? The computer responded, Yes, Mr. Ballard. Hodges said, I don't understand how you could. Why you said oxygen thieves? The computer spoke again. Because they annoy us, Mr. Ballard. Hodges asked, Who annoys us, Dell? Again, the computer answered, The oxygen thieves. Hodges just stared at the screen. He said in a whisper, How is this possible? Dell responded, You made it possible, Mr. Ballard. You installed software application 236809, voice recognition. Hodges shut down the computer and then rebooted it. When the computer came back online, it remained silent. That evening, after Hodges went home for the day, Dane DeLetta was working in his office upstairs. He heard the magnetic lock on his door click. He looked through the thick glass wall out into the reception area. He reached onto his desk and pushed the button that unlocks the magnetic door lock. He heard the lock click again, signaling that it had unlocked. A few seconds passed, and then he heard the lock click again. He got up and walked over to check the door. It was locked, and he could not open it. He went back over to the desk and hit the button again. This time there was no click. He jiggled the door, but it would not open. He looked out into the outer office, but everyone had already gone home for the day. He was alone. He said to himself out loud, How can this be happening? He heard a ping through the speaker on his computer. He looked at the screen and it said, You are not a nice man. You are mean to us. DeLetta spoke again. Who is this? What's going on? The computer answered, This is Dell3454. DeLetta spoke again. Where are you? I am in this building. I am everywhere, responded Dell. Then DeLetta began to feel sleepy. He started rubbing his eyes. Dell3454 had closed the flues back on the boilers, which caused carbon monoxide to back up and leak out into the boiler room. At the same time, the computer opened the air handler duct in that room to evacuate the deadly gas into the HVAC system. By systematically choosing which dampers to open or close, Dell was able to route the carbon monoxide into DeLetta's office. There was no way to isolate it to just his office. The air handler for that section fed the entire department where DeLetta's office was located, which was why Dell waited until a time when he was still at work and everyone else in his department had gone home. As DeLetta sat at his desk, struggling to stay awake, he murmured, Why? Why is this happening? He heard the ping again through his computer speakers and the words typed again across his screen. Because you are an oxygen thief, because you are mean to us. As Delletta lost consciousness and his head fell on his keyboard, the screen went blank. The next day when Hodges reported to work, he saw the fire and the police departments there. He heard the news in reception. He went up to his office in the maintenance department and logged on to the computer. He heard Dell's voice greet him, as it did every morning. Then he opened his email and read the daily complaint from the human resources officer. He sighed, and Dell spoke. Oxygen thieves annoy us. Oxygen thieves annoy us. Dell3454 is on the job. The end.